add value to your business, or do you want to just be this administrative person?
And often, if you look at your talent team and the caliber of talent in your company, they correlate.
You could hire the best person for the job if they were in your candidate pool.
All these individual employees, one by one, together, their voices all come together to articulate the culture of the company.
This is
Hiring on all cylinders.
Hello again, Podcast Land. Rob Stevenson here for Hiring on All Cylinders at the Future Workplace Network meetup from the most glorious confines of Fidelity HQ in Boston, Massachusetts. And I am thrilled to be surging ever onward with another episode. Current friend, former guest of the show.
Former friend.
We used to be friends. Current friend, former guest of the show, Jeanne Meister is back. She is the founder of Future Workplace. Jeanne, it's so great to have you back on.
Thank you so much, and thank you for making the trip from Silicon Valley to downtown Boston.
It's been a blast. I have thoroughly loved being the podcast of record. Joining me also for this episode is Intel's very own VP of Talent and Operations, Jill Woody. Jill, how's it going so far?
It's going great. I've really enjoyed the conference.
Good. I love it. So much to ask you about, Jeanne. Of course, the reason for the occasion is this book that you wrote, The Future Workplace Experience, 10 Rules for Mastering Disruption in Recruiting and Engaging Employees. Had the launch event last night. It was a rousing success by all accounts. And so I'm curious, we talked about it at HR Tech, but we kind of got into the nitty gritty. So at a high level, where did the book come from?
The book came from a column I wrote about a year and a half ago now when I interviewed Mark Levy, the CHRO of Airbnb, and Mark shared his experience with focusing less on HR processes and much more on creating a compelling workplace experience. So I have to say that was the seed of my first thought on this is a major movement for HR to be more proactive, to get in front of what I think is the biggest trend to impact HR, the movement of how do we use marketing tools from our marketing department, tools like design thinking and hackathons, to help reimagine HR in every company out there.
Wonderful. So there's a great amount of research in the book. So what were some of the findings and what was sort of all the sort of questions you were looking at here?
Yeah, so we interviewed first 2,147 global heads of HR and hiring managers, and the research was sponsored by Cisco. We then followed that up with nearly 100 case studies, some of them phone interviews, some of them one-on-ones. There were three big findings that came out. The first one was around how employees learn and develop and grow on the job. And this movement of less focused on formal learning and much more focus on career mobility, providing employees an opportunity to test drive, which was what we called it, new skills and new roles inside their current company. Because one of the issues with organizations today is how do we retain the best talent? And this is a very powerful way we found in the research. Those HR companies like MasterCard and Cisco that had internal career mobility programs are experiencing increases in employee engagement, in productivity, and in innovation. So that's finding number one. The second one was how HR leaders are creating a mobile-first strategy for HR. That means talent acquisition, mobile first, learning and development, mobile first. And it's basically what the consumer companies, the gaming companies have been doing for decades. Right? And the third big one is all around technology. How can technology be not just a disruptor, because we have heard from the World Economic Forum that by the year 2020, 7 million jobs will be eliminated, but focus more on how technology can enhance and advise us and help us to work smarter.
So, Jeanne, on that internal mobility piece, I heard someone yesterday, I can't remember if it was in one of the formal discussions or one of my sort of informal networking chats, but someone was talking about how at their company, they actually reward managers for transferring, I think this might have been through Fidelity, for successfully transferring employees to other departments, because there's, the old way of thinking is hold on to all of your talent and don't let it free. But what we've seen is that when you do share talent, when there is a cross-pollination across other departments, that actually drives innovation. So was there some research around that and this internal mobility piece?
Well, yes, the number one issue is managers hoarding the best employees, right? We've known that. And so what companies need to be doing more of is training managers on how this is, by keeping people inside the company, not necessarily inside the department, is really going to grow the overall top and bottom line of the organization. And I think it's a mindset shift that has to happen among managers. And that's why I think there needs to be some meeting of the minds, no pun intended, so that managers understand that this is something that's going to have tremendous value for the overall organization, and that yes, they're going to lose a bright star on their team, but there's the opportunity to add a diverse point of view to that team, so that at the end of the day, that team is able to reach new heights, if you will. And so we've got to change the mindsets of our line business leaders to buy into this. I think we have some early adopters in companies that have these internal career mobility programs. And I think we're just beginning to see this as an early trend to tackle the biggest problem out there, which is retaining the best talent. Because if someone is really good with in-demand skills, they're going to leave the company. So why not find them another role within the company?
Definitely. It makes so much sense. And yet I think it's almost human instinct, human nature to say, well, here's the best talent. I want it for myself.
Yeah.
But recognizing that diversity contribution is so important, and it does ultimately lead to better business outcomes. And I think we saw some of that as well when we heard earlier from MasterCard and Silicon Valley Bank and a few others with their approach and their adoption of design thinking and these hackathons that they've been doing. We've seen that bringing people together from a cross-functional team to innovate on HR practices has really led to some impressive results. Any highlights for that from that presentation?
Yes,
for you?
yes. I moderated that panel, and so first the first takeaway was, isn't it interesting that the three companies we highlighted, BMO Financial Group in Canada, Bank of Montreal, MasterCard, and
Silicon
Valley Bank, were all essentially in financial services, probably the sector you might imagine the last to be innovative, but actually this sector is the first to experience the disruptions. Right. So think about FinTech and how that recent statistics, a research report by Citibank is looking at disrupting and eliminating up to 20 or 30% of the jobs in financial services, impacting about 2 million financial services workers in the U.S. and various parts of Asia and Europe. So this has been a call to action to companies in financial services to get in front of this trend and understand how to disrupt new hire onboarding, how to disrupt learning and development so that these organizations become best places to attract the best talent.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I another mention of FinTech yesterday and how disruptive this has been and will continue to be was that stat about how among millennials, if given the option, if Google or Apple came out or Amazon came out with a bank, that 70% would sign up for that bank or something like that. I mean, it's here.
Yeah, they don't want to just work for Google or Apple. They want to buy every product that Google and Apple makes.
Right.
Yeah, I think the other interesting statistic for those of us in talent development, there was an interesting piece of research with Universum that we used in the book, which looked at a large population of about 40,000 Gen Z. So that's the generation younger than the millennials, right? And that's sort of where everyone is focusing on now. And they asked that population, how important it was to go to college, and actually of that population, they said, I'm really questioning it. It's not a foregone conclusion that I'm going to go to college. And then the next question for this sample was, well, how do you, what are some of your key criteria as you look for job opportunities if you don't go to college? And of the top three was the amount that an employer is going to invest in their learning and development. So I think this is the moment for L&D. It's being disrupted, and it's really going to the top three reasons why a candidate would choose an employer, especially if especially if Gen Zs are starting to question the value of a college education given the cost of a college education here in the United States. We heard from Fidelity, who has just announced their student loan repayment program, giving millennials up to $10,000 over a 5-year period, that in this country, student debt is the second biggest source of debt, $1.4 trillion, and it impacts not only someone's professional life, but their personal journey as they go on from college. So I think disruption is around us, and we're very proud that the member companies, the 60 member companies of the Future Workplace Network, are all early adopters in understanding that this is a very disruptive time to be leading HR and are taking action.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it occurs to me that there's a flip side of that case that you're saying, where if Gen Z is less sure that college or university is the right path for them, yes, organizations will have to adapt by providing more of the L&D resources, but also in terms of the way they recruit, because I think a lot of companies are used to using as a minimum barrier to entry that college degree. And if more and more people who might be exceptional candidates, but for that college degree, are turning out into the workforce, then that's going to be a real mind shift on the part of the organizations. They're going to have to find better ways to, for instance, find and recruit and attract students that don't have a college degree or high school graduates, and also accept them and embrace them as a part of their culture.
That we tackled that at a meeting last year, actually, and we called it attracting non-traditional employees, because they're actually non-traditional employees in the sense that they didn't follow our path. I've been in the workforce, and I remember one of my first jobs, not only did I have to have a college degree, but I had to have a 3.2 GPA. So I think we've come a really long way, and I think part of the issue is how do we change the mindsets of people that run talent acquisition programs, because their instinct is to go and look for someone like them. And we have to build this case that there are brilliance out there that may have taken a series of MOOCs and have gotten certifications from INSEAD, from MIT, and that hold the in-demand skills that companies want. And we have to make sure that heads of talent acquisition understand how to find them and understand, once they get them in the organization, how to embrace them, because they're non-traditional and they're going to be on teams with people that have graduated from universities and came at a much different point in time. So it's another level of the diversity of composition and changing composition of the workforce.
Definitely. I think too many companies, when they think of, are we attracting a diverse population, they look instead obviously at certain metrics, gender, ethnic backgrounds, and there are some companies that are frankly very biased against, for instance, non-traditional upbringing and non-traditional educational backgrounds, where actually that diversity could really help them.
And I think when you look under the covers of all that, you find that by adding diversity of thought to teams actually gives you a better end result, right? You're able to look at different options that you might not have if you have a bunch of people that had essentially the same experiences as you. So we're trying to move this issue with our members who are heads of talent acquisition and corporate learning, that this is a really important topic that needs to be an agenda item for 2017 for many of the heads of talent acquisition out there.
I love it. So do we have time to go into the polling? Should we talk about that?
Yes. So this is the second day of our 2-day Future Workplace Network meeting. And just before we launched our new book last night, we had our nearly 200 participants take a quick poll, and we showed them all the 10 rules in the book, The Future Workplace Experience, and we had them vote on what are the three rules that are the three areas that are going to impact them most in 2017. And we were, I guess, a bit surprised. The number one was reorganizing their corporate learning department to be much more accessible for on-demand learning from all sorts of formal, informal, MOOCs, TED Talks, to bring the universe to the employee. So that was actually the first one. The second one was technology as a disruptor and an enabler, and how can heads of HR prepare? What are the jobs that are going to be disrupted, and what are the jobs that didn't exist in the last couple of years that we're going to see more of? Like, somebody has to train AI, right? There's going to be a whole crop of AI trainers, artificial intelligence. Of course, we have data scientists, but we have AI trainers, YouTube content curators, as more of our learning experiences will come from the things that we experience every day in our personal lives. And then finally, this concept of one of our 10 rules was be an agile learner. How can we inculcate in more innovation and future focus among our leaders across the organization? So those are the three areas that our members believe they're going to be focusing on in 2017.
Wonderful. I could keep picking your brain on this, but I want to let you get back to your adoring fans here at the conference. The book is called The Future Workplace Experience, 10 Rules for Mastering Disruption in Recruiting and Engaging Employees. Where can my wonderful listeners pick it up?
Well, certainly it is available on Amazon, and we have our own website, www.thefutureworkplaceexperience.com, which gives you even more content and, of course, an ability to purchase the book. Thank you very much, Intello, for spending the time with us over the last 2 days.
It's been absolutely our pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Thank you.